The assembly hall was full. Hundreds of students sat quietly in neat rows, wearing their school uniforms. Teachers lined the walls, some smiling, others strict. The principal stood on the stage, holding a microphone. Today, he said, we celebrate academic excellence. Everyone clapped. Awards were being given out. Cameras clicked. Proud parents waved from the back. In the third row, a 17-year-old boy sat still, quiet. His name was Elijah Brooks. He didn't smile. He didn't clap. He just looked down at his hands. No one noticed the two men in black suits near the exit. They weren't teachers. They weren't guests. They were officers. And they were looking directly at Elijah. The principal kept talking. Next, we honor our future leaders. The officers moved forward. Elijah finally looked up. His eyes met theirs. He froze. The officers didn't wait. They walked down the aisle calmly, past surprised students and confused teachers. Elijah Brooks. One of them asked loudly. Everyone turned. A hush fell over the hall. Elijah stood, slowly. What's this about? His voice shook. You are under arrest, the officer said. For fraud and identity theft. Gasps echoed in the hall. A student dropped his phone. A teacher whispered, what? Elijah's mother, seated at the back, screamed, no, that's a mistake. But the handcuffs clicked. Elijah didn't resist. He just looked at the floor. His mother ran forward, sobbing. Please, he's just a boy, she cried. He didn't do anything. But the officers ignored her. They led Elijah out of the hall. Cameras kept flashing. Whispers turned into rumors. He stole money. Elijah, that quiet kid? At the police station, Elijah sat alone in a cold room. No windows. Just a table and a chair. Hours passed. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. Then an officer entered with a file. You know why you're here, right? The officer asked. Elijah nodded. I didn't do it, he said softly. That's what they all say. The officer opened the file. Over $1 million was moved through accounts linked to your name. Elijah frowned. I don't even have a bank account. The officer slid papers across the table. These transfers were made from a local nonprofit charity, and the IP address matches your school. Elijah looked up, confused. That's impossible. Your name, your student ID, your email all were used, the officer said. The evidence is strong, son. Elijah's heart pounded. He felt sick. I didn't. I wouldn't. You better get a lawyer, the officer said. But the court date was set quickly. Within days, Elijah was brought to juvenile court. His mother sat behind him, eyes swollen from crying. She hadn't slept. She kept whispering prayers. Elijah's hands were shaking. His lawyer, a public defender, didn't look at him. Just answer what they ask. The man said flatly. Don't say anything extra. Elijah wanted to believe in the system, but something felt wrong. The judge entered. The room stood up. All rise for Judge Wilkins. A gavel hit the wood. We begin the case of Elijah Brooks, age 17, charged with fraud, identity theft, and misappropriation of funds. Elijah's name echoed through the room like thunder. He looked around. Reporters sat in the back. Some had cameras. Strangers whispered. The judge looked down at Elijah. Do you understand the charges? Yes, Your Honor, Elijah said. And how do you plead? Elijah opened his mouth. Not guilty, his lawyer cut in. The judge raised an eyebrow. Very well. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, we have bank records, IP logs, and witness testimony linking the defendant to the crime. Elijah's lawyer barely reacted. I haven't seen all the evidence yet, he muttered. The judge asked, Is your client ready to proceed? The lawyer sighed. Then he stood. Slowly, he turned to Elijah. I can't do this, he said. I don't believe my client is telling the truth. The courtroom gasped. Elijah blinked. What? The lawyer looked at the judge. Your Honor, I'm withdrawing from this case effective immediately. Motion denied, the judge said sharply. We're in session. Then I'm leaving anyway, the lawyer said. And he walked out. The courtroom froze. Elijah sat there, alone. His mother covered her mouth in horror. No, she whispered. The judge slammed his gavel. Order. Order in the court. Elijah stood up slowly. His voice cracked. I didn't do this. The judge narrowed her eyes. Do you wish to represent yourself? Elijah hesitated. He felt everyone's eyes on him. He wanted to run, but something inside him said no. Yes, he said. I want to defend myself. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have any legal training? A little, Elijah said. I've been studying law since I was 13. The judge stared at him for a moment, then nodded. Very well. The court allows it. Reporters began scribbling furiously. Elijah took a deep breath. His mother looked shocked. She had no idea he had studied law on his own. Elijah asked for access to public files related to the nonprofit involved. The judge allowed it. He was granted 2 days to prepare. In those 2 days, Elijah barely slept. He stayed up reading legal guides, case studies, and cybercrime laws. He asked the guards for a pen and paper. He wrote everything down. He drew timelines, listed names, made arguments. He found something interesting. The charity's bank account was accessed from the school's Wi-Fi during after-school hours. Elijah was never at school that late. He remembered always going home to help his mom. On the third day, Elijah entered court with a stack of notes. He wore the same school uniform, now wrinkled and tired-looking. He called his first witness his math teacher. Did I stay after school on the days these transactions happened? He asked. The teacher looked at her calendar. No, Elijah. You left early every time. Elijah nodded. Then who stayed late those days? The teacher looked confused. I am not sure. Elijah handed the court a list of students who had access to the school computer lab. He had found it in public school files. One name stood out. Mark Hansen, Elijah's former classmate, a tech genius. He had been expelled last year. Elijah looked straight at the judge. I believe Mark framed me. The judge frowned. That's a serious claim. Elijah continued. Mark had access. He knew. My student ID? He once hacked the school website. The prosecutor objected. This is speculation. I have proof, Elijah said, and then he played the voicemail. A deep voice came from the phone speaker. Stay quiet, Elijah. Up. Make sure they don't find out what really happened. The courtroom fell silent. That voice, Elijah said, belongs to someone sitting right here. Everyone looked around. I know that voice, Elijah said softly. He paid Mark. He used the charity to move money, and he planned to pin it all on me. The judge leaned forward. Who is it? Elijah slowly pointed to the back row. That man in the suit, Langston, the director of the charity. Langston stood up, calm and cold. He smiled. This is nonsense, he said, but the judge didn't smile. You'll stay for questioning, she said. Elijah sat down, heart pounding. His mother cried silently behind him. He didn't know if he had one, but for the first time, people were listening, and he was not backing down. Not now, not ever. Elijah sat alone in the cold holding cell. His hands trembled, though he tried to keep them still. He had stood in front of a courtroom full of adults, powerful people, strangers, and pointed his finger at one of the most respected men in the city, Langston, the man who wore expensive suits and smiled in every charity commercial. Elijah had dared to accuse him. Now, the silence after that moment weighed on him like chains. The metal bars in front of him seemed tighter tonight. But worse than the bars was the doubt in his heart. Did I do the right thing? He remembered the look on Langston's face. Cold, unreadable, like a man used to hiding things. But what if Elijah had made a mistake? What if this all backfired? He didn't even have a lawyer anymore. No one stood beside him. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the hallway. The guard opened the door, and a familiar figure stepped in. His mother. She looked tired, older than she had just days ago, but her eyes still had that warmth, that love. She sat on the metal bench and reached through the bars to hold his hands. You were brave today, she whispered. Elijah shook his head. I was scared. But you still spoke, she said. You spoke the truth. That takes more courage than any speech. I'm just a kid, Mom. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even an adult. They're going to crush me. No, they're not, she said, gently squeezing his hand. You know what the truth is? And they're starting to see it too. For the first time in days, Elijah let himself breathe. That night, he stayed up writing, remembering, connecting the dots. He thought about Mark Hansen, the student who suddenly disappeared from school, the one who had access to computers and a strange obsession with hacking. Elijah remembered overhearing Mark once brag about using a keylogger, small device that records every keystroke. At the time, Elijah didn't understand much. Now it clicked. What if that's how they got my login credentials? The next morning, court resumed. Elijah, wearing the same plain clothes he'd worn for days, stood tall. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. The media had picked up the story. Teen without lawyer cross-examines powerful CEO. The judge looked at him. Mr. Brooks, you may continue. Elijah took a deep breath and approached the stand. I'd like to call a new witness. The school's IT technician, Mr. Daniels, nervous man with glasses, stepped up. He looked confused but obeyed. Elijah asked calmly, Mr. Daniels, do the school computers have protection against USB devices? Mr. Daniels cleared his throat. Well, not really. Students aren't supposed to use SBs, but technically, the ports aren't blocked. Could someone install a device without being noticed? Unfortunately, yes. A keylogger, perhaps. Yes, a small USB keylogger could easily be placed behind a keyboard. Elijah nodded. Do you perform regular checks for those? Not really. We trust the students, or we used to, the courtroom murmured. Elijah turned to the judge. Your Honor, I request that we allow the police to check the school's computer lab, specifically the ones I used. The prosecutor objected. This is speculation, the judge interrupted. I find the request reasonable. Court is adjourned until the investigation is completed. By evening, officers arrived at the school. They scanned the lab computers, and there it was behind keyboard number 3, a tiny black device. AKEYLOGGER. It had logged hundreds of entries, including Elijah's username and password, from weeks ago. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. People whispered. Reporters scribbled. Elijah sat still as the keylogger was presented as evidence. He stood up. I told you. I didn't fake those numbers. Someone stole my login information. The prosecutor looked shaken. We have no proof who planted that device. Elijah raised his hand. Then let's talk about who had access. Mark Hansen used That same computer often, he even got detention once for messing with the hardware. A witness was called the janitor, Mr. Polson. Yes, I remember Mark, the janitor said. Caught him under the desk, fiddling with wires. Said the keyboard was acting funny. The judge's expression tightened. Mr. Langston, do you know this? Mark Hansen? Langston smirked. The name sounds unfamiliar. Elijah's voice rose. You received 6 phone calls from his number the week before my arrest. Gasps filled the room. Langston shrugged. I get many calls. Elijah didn't stop. You also transferred money Bitcoin, untraceable. But it went into a wallet linked to Mark. Langston's face froze. The first crack in his perfect mask. Elijah leaned forward. You thought no one would look? But I did, because I had to. The judge tapped her gavel. We will open a full investigation into Mr. Langston's financial records and charity operations. In the meantime, Mr. Brooks, based on this evidence, your charges are dropped. Tears filled Elijah's eyes. The chains were off. The label criminal thief, Lyrit, was gone. His mother hugged him tightly. You did it, she whispered. But as they turned to leave, a voice called out, You think it's over? Everyone turned. A young man in a hoodie stepped forward. Elijah's heart skipped. Mark. 2 guards reached for him, but he held his hands up. You got lucky, Brooks, Mark said. You found the USB, the calls, the money, but you missed the biggest piece. Elijah stared. What are you talking about? Mark smirked. Langston wasn't working alone. Gasps echoed through the room. Elijah's face paled. What do you mean? Mark looked at the judge. You'll find out. They're watching all of this. And you just walked into something way bigger than fraud. The guards pulled him away. The judge tried to restore order, but the tension was thick. Elijah stood frozen. Was there more? Was someone else involved? As he left the courtroom, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, but Elijah didn't hear them. His mind was spinning. What had he just uncovered? Was this just the beginning? His mother squeezed his shoulder. We need to be careful now, she said. Elijah nodded slowly, because now, the fight wasn't just for justice, it was for survival. The crowd outside the courthouse had doubled by the next day. News vans lined the street. Reporters shoved microphones at anyone who stepped out the doors. Elijah had gone from a forgotten teen, accused of a major fraud, to the boy who exposed a powerful man. But what Mark had said before being dragged away, that Langston wasn't working alone, echoed in Elijah's head like a warning bell. He couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking, if Langston wasn't the mastermind, then who was? His mother noticed his silence as they sat at the kitchen table. She poured him a cup of tea and asked, What's bothering you? Mark? He whispered. He said it isn't over, that someone else was behind it. What if this is bigger than we thought? His mother nodded. Then we stay sharp. You've already proven you can stand alone in court. Now, we fight smart. Elijah pulled out the old folder he had kept since the beginning. Inside were all the documents, screenshots, timelines, and strange patterns he had collected. And something caught his eye. Name. Susan Myers, head of the city's Youth Development Fund. Her signature was on many of the forged documents. Elijah had always assumed Langston forced her to sign them, but what if she knew? He opened his laptop and searched her name. Within seconds, dozens of articles came up. Smiling photos, interviews about youth empowerment, donations to underprivileged schools. Then he found it. A buried blog post from 2 years ago, written by a student intern. Miss Myers always told us, don't question where the money comes from, just smile for the camera. It felt wrong, but we didn't say anything. One of the interns tried to speak up. He was let go the next day. No warning. Elijah's heart raced. He turned to his mom. I think I found our next lead. The next morning he called the courthouse. He had learned the process of filing a subpoena by now, something most teenagers never even heard of. He submitted a request for Susan Myers to testify and handed in every piece of evidence, linking her to the misused funds. The court granted it. 3 days later, Susan Myers walked into the courtroom wearing a blue skirt suit and a forced smile. She looked calm until she saw Elijah sitting at the front. He stood holding a small notepad. Miss Myers, I just have a few questions. She nodded. Of course. I'm here to help clear everything up. He smiled politely, but his eyes stayed sharp. How long have you worked with Mr. Langston? 7 years, she replied confidently. We've done wonderful things for the youth. Can you tell us about the Youth Development Fund? She brightened. One of our proudest achievements. We've helped over 50 programs grow across the city. Elijah raised an eyebrow. 50 programs. That's a lot. But I noticed something strange. He walked to the evidence screen. Out of those 50, 12 programs share the same mailing address. A storage unit? Gasps. The judge leaned forward. Elijah continued. And 3 more are registered under fake names. I checked the school rosters. These students don't exist. Suzanne froze. I believe you and Mr. Langston created fake programs to move money into private accounts, Elijah said softly. And you signed those approvals, Miss Myers. Her hands trembled. I was told they were real. By whom? She hesitated. The courtroom was silent. Elijah pressed again. Who told you to approve them? I can't. She looked down, tears forming. Miss Myers, Elijah said, his voice firmer now. A lot of real students lost scholarships because of this. You may be protecting someone powerful, but your silence is protecting the wrong side. She swallowed hard. I was threatened. If I didn't cooperate, they said they'd ruin my family. My son was applying for a heart transplant. Elijah softened. Who threatened you? She whispered the name. Senator Roy Lancaster. The room exploded in noise. Cameras clicked. People gasped. A judge pounded the gavel. Elijah stood frozen. A senator. A sitting U.S. senator. He had stepped into something far more dangerous than a school fraud. The judge ordered immediate protection for Susan Myers and halted court for the day. Elijah and his mother were rushed out through a side exit. That night, they sat in a hotel under police watch. His mother turned to him. Are you okay? Elijah stared out the window. I thought it would end with Langston, but this is something else. We're not just fighting a criminal. We're fighting a system. His mom didn't say anything. She simply placed her hand over his. Elijah opened his laptop and began writing again. He knew what he had to do next. 3 days later, Part 3 of Elijah's fight resumed with a national spotlight now watching. Senator Lancaster had not responded. 2 requests for comment. His legal team denied any involvement. But Elijah had more, a lot more. He called his next witness, Mr. Julian Reeves, a former accountant, who worked briefly with the senator's campaign. Reeves walked in, pale and shaking. Elijah asked, Do you recognize this document? He held up a transfer order, signed by Susan Myers, moving $40,000 into a shell fund connected to Lancaster's re-election campaign. Yes, Reeves said. I created it. Why? Because the senator's office told me to clean the books, move things around, hide donations. When I asked questions, I was fired, and you never spoke out. No one would believe me, but you kept a backup file, Elijah said, holding up a USB stick. Reeves nodded. The USB was submitted to the court. It showed multiple hidden transfers from fake youth programs into Lancaster's political accounts, over $700,000 in total. The courtroom was in chaos again. The prosecutor, red-faced, stood up. Your Honor, in light of these new developments, we ask to suspend Elijah Brooks's case indefinitely and open a federal investigation. The judge nodded. Elijah didn't speak. He simply closed his notepad. He'd started this alone now. The system that tried to bury him was being forced to dig up its own skeletons. As he walked out of the courtroom, a young boy maybe up to him. You're Elijah Brooks, right? Elijah smiled. Yeah. Hey. The boy held out a piece of paper. Can I get your autograph? Elijah blinked. Why? Because you're the first kid I've seen on TV who fights adults and wins. Elijah signed the paper, but his heart wasn't proud. It was heavy, because he knew the fight wasn't over. Not yet. The next day, news broke. Senator Lancaster was placed under investigation. Langston's accounts were frozen. Susan Myers resigned, and Elijah was invited to speak at 3 national youth events. But, with all the noise, one thing stood out in Elijah's mind. Mark's final words. You missed the biggest piece. He still didn't know what that meant. That night, as Elijah packed his things from the hotel, he found something odd. Tucked inside his backpack was a small flash drive. It wasn't his. He plugged it into his laptop. A single file appeared. A video he clicked. Planned. His face turned pale. The screen glowed in the dark hotel room. Elijah sat frozen, staring at the video playing on his laptop. The footage was shaky, recorded secretly, like from a hidden camera. The setting looked like a private office. Dim lights, leather chairs, a long table, but it was the faces that made Elijah's heart stop. Mr. Langston, Susan Myers, and sitting between them, Senator Roy Lancaster. They were talking fast, nervously. We need to make it clean, Langston said. Susan whispered, We've already moved half the money. Lancaster leaned forward. If that boy opens his mouth, it won't be about a few dollars, it'll be about me. And that can't happen. Elijah paused the video. He couldn't breathe. He hit play again. Lancaster said, Find something on him. Twist it. Frame him if you must. I don't care how, but shut him down. The video ended. Elijah's hands were shaking. Someone had been recording the senator, but who and why give it to him? He grabbed the flash drive, tucked it in his pocket, and called the lead investigator assigned to the case. An hour later, he was in a secured federal building, showing them the footage. The agent, a tall woman named Agent Harlow, watched the video with narrowed eyes. This changes everything, she whispered. This isn't just fraud anymore. This is conspiracy. Elijah said, You need to protect Susan Myers. She's in danger. We already have her under watch. Harlow replied, But you just became a threat to people in power. She handed him a small phone. This is encrypted. Use it if you sense anything strange. We're assigning you protection, but be alert. Elijah walked out of the building feeling both empowered and terrified. He had proof that could destroy a senator, but he also knew what kind of people he was now facing. 2 days later, a black car pulled up outside Elijah's school. He hadn't been back in weeks. The principal invited him to speak at an assembly to tell the students how he stood up for the truth. Elijah hesitated. What if it was a trap? But his mother smiled. You've come this far. Go show them who you are. He walked into the school auditorium. 2 roaring applause. Cameras flashed. Students stood and cheered. The principal handed him the mic. Please welcome Elijah Brooks. He took the stage, heart pounding. I'm not a hero, he began. I'm just someone who got tired of being afraid. The room went silent. I was accused of stealing from a system that was already stealing from kids like me. But instead of hiding, I fought not with fists, with truth. He paused, and I learned something. That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to move anyway. The students stood again, clapping. Some were crying, teachers wiped their eyes. But Elijah noticed something strange. A man near the back of the auditorium, tall dark glasses, not clapping, just watching. He felt a chill. After the event, as Elijah walked to the parking lot with his mom, the same man followed at a distance. Elijah whispered, "That guy's been staring since I got here." Before his mother could speak, to federal agents, I peered from behind the school building. Mr. Brooks, we've been monitoring. That man isn't with us. They rushed Elijah and his mom into a secure vehicle. As the car sped away, Elijah looked out the window. The man was gone that night. Agent Harlow met with Elijah again. There's more you should know, she said, sliding over a folder. The man watching you today, we believe he works for Lancaster's private network, not official security, not police. These are the kind of men who make problems disappear, Elijah whispered. So he really is dangerous. Yes, and he knows you have the video. Harlow stood. We're launching the official case tomorrow. Federal court. Lancaster will be subpoenaed, but we need you to testify. Elijah nodded slowly. I'll do it, but, Harlow warned, there's one thing. Once this trial starts, there's no going back. You'll be on every news channel. Your name, your face, everything. Need to be ready for that. He looked at his mom. She gave him a quiet nod. I'm ready. The next morning, the courtroom was full. This time, Elijah wasn't the one on trial, he was the witness. A new judge presided, a federal one. The courtroom was under tight security. Lancaster hadn't arrived yet. Elijah sat at the front, hands folded, waiting. Then the doors opened. Senator Lancaster walked in, surrounded by 5 lawyers. Cameras clicked wildly. News anchors whispered into microphones. He didn't look afraid. He looked angry. As Elijah took the witness stand, the judge said, Mr. Brooks, please state your involvement in this case. Elijah's voice was clear. I was accused of a fraud I didn't commit, and in defending myself, I found out it wasn't just a local crime, it was a political one. I found this. He handed over the flash drive, a video of this man, ordering the cover-up. Lancaster's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. The video played. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Lancaster sat stone-faced, but his jaw clenched. The judge asked, Senador Lancaster, do you wish to respond? Lancaster stood. This is fake, deepfake technology, a prank from a child with a grudge. But the federal tech expert confirmed it wasn't fake, it was real. Lancaster's face paled slightly, but he didn't flinch. Then Elijah said something no one expected. Your Honor, I have more evidence. The room went silent. Elijah pulled out a notebook and flipped to the last page. The original whistleblower was someone inside Lancaster's team, and they gave me this. He handed over an account list coded transactions leading to offshore accounts linked to Lancaster's charity and campaign funds. The judge stared at it, expression tight. Elijah turned to the senator. Someone close to you wanted the truth out, and they chose me to carry it. Lancaster's face turned red. He knew someone had betrayed him. The court recessed for review. As Elijah stepped down, Lancaster walked past him and leaned in. You think you've won, boy? You've just started a war. Elijah didn't flinch. Then I'll fight it. Later that night, a breaking news alert flashed on every screen. Senator Lancaster indicted for fraud, conspiracy, and threats to witnesses. Elijah watched from the hotel room as anchors debated the story. But even in that moment of victory, he didn't feel safe. There were still names he hadn't uncovered. People who had stayed hidden. He stared at the final page in the notebook. One word circled. In red Osprey. What was it? A person? A project? Or the one controlling it all from the shadows? The news spread like wildfire. Senator Lancaster indicted. Teen whistleblower Elijah Brooks stuns courtroom. Secret recording exposes political cover-up. But for Elijah, the headlines meant very little. He was living in fear. 2 federal agents now followed him everywhere. He couldn't walk outside without scanning over his shoulder. Couldn't sleep without locking 3 deadbolts. Couldn't trust anyone because someone had leaked his hotel location. Just hours after the court session ended, his mom tried to stay strong. But Elijah saw the tiredness in her eyes. The quiet prayers, the way she jumped every time the phone rang. And then there was Osprey. That one word circled in the notebook, like a shadow behind everything. Elijah sat on the hotel bed, flipping through the pages for the 100th time. The word appeared only once. No address, no contact, no context. But his gut told him Osprey wasn't just a person. Osprey was the power behind Senator Lancaster. And if Lancaster was falling, then Osprey would come next. The next morning Elijah received a sealed envelope slipped under his hotel room door. No name, no address. Just a silver wax stamp with a bird. And Osprey. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. You've done enough. Walk away. and your mother stays safe. Keep digging, and you'll never see her again. That was it. No. Threats of prison. Just his mom. He dropped the letter. Heart racing. Then his encrypted phone rang. Agent Harlow's voice was sharp. We intercepted a signal. Someone knows where you are. Move now. Elijah ran to the window. Across the street, a dark van sat parked. The engine was running. Too fast to think. Too late to hide. They were already here. 20 minutes later, Elijah and his mother were on a private flight arranged by the FBI. Their new location? Undisclosed. Even the pilot didn't know the final destination until they were airborne. As the plane climbed into the clouds, Elijah finally exhaled, but peace didn't last, because an hour later, Agent Harlow joined them mid-flight with a file in her hand. She dropped it in Elijah's lap. Osprey isn't a person, she said. Elijah opened the folder. Photos, maps, old contracts, redacted names. Harlow continued. It's a code name. A project launched 12 years ago, funded by the same senator you exposed. Osprey was designed as a private surveillance operation off the books, hidden even from Congress. It started under the name Project Shield. Later it became Osprey. Elijah flipped the pages. One photo caught his eye. A teenage boy strapped to a chair, electrodes on his head, surveillance monitors in the background. This was a child, he said. Many were, Harlow replied. They tested new tech on kids from low-income schools? Including yours. Elijah's stomach dropped. You mean, they used us? She nodded. Some of the missing funds you mentioned, they didn't vanish. They were rerouted into Osprey. The courtroom drama was just the surface. This was the storm beneath it. That night, Elijah couldn't sleep. His thoughts kept circling one question. Why me? Why had he been chosen? Why had his lawyer walked out? Why had he received the flash drive? The answer came from an unexpected place. A knock on the hotel door. It was late. Too late for visitors. Harlow approached cautiously, hand on her sidearm. But the person outside wasn't a threat. It was Susan Myers. She looked exhausted, eyes puffy, voice trembling. I need to talk to Elijah, she said. Alone. Harlow hesitated, then nodded. Susan stepped inside, sat across from Elijah, and whispered, I'm the one who left you the flash drive. Elijah stared at her in disbelief. You? But why? Tears welled in her eyes. I worked with Lancaster. For years, I believed in him, until I found out what Osprey really was. What it did to students like you. She wiped her face. I wanted to come forward, but I was trapped, blackmailed, so I waited. Then I met you, a smart, quiet boy with a spark they couldn't crush. I saw courage in you that I didn't have. Her hands trembled. So I gave you the truth, hoping you'd do what I couldn't. Elijah leaned forward. But why did you tell me now? Because, she whispered, they're planning something bigger than just silencing you. She pulled out a USB. This holds the names of everyone connected to Osprey. Real names, politicians, judges, CEOs. Elijah took it carefully. How did you get this? I stole it, she said. And now, I'm leaving the country. Hey, you can't run. I have to, she said, but you can finish this. The next day, Elijah handed the USB to Agent Harlow. She was speechless. These names, this goes beyond anything we imagined. If this is real, the system's infected at the highest levels. Elijah looked her in the eye. We need to go public. Harlow hesitated. That's risky. They'll target anyone involved. They already are, he said. But if we stay quiet, they win. 3 days later, Elijah stood in front of a podium. Behind him, a dozen federal agents. To his right, Susan Myers. To his left, Agent Harlow. The press conference began. Cameras rolled. Microphones extended. Elijah spoke. My name is Elijah Brooks. I am 17 years old. I was accused of a crime I didn't commit, but in defending myself, I uncovered something far worse. A hidden network of corruption that used children as pawns. He took a breath. I have proof. Of the project. Of the money trail. Of the people involved. Gasps echoed as he dropped a folder onto the podium. Today, I'm giving this to the Department of Justice and the public. Reporters shouted questions. But Elijah raised a hand. One more thing, he said. If anything happens to me or my mother, I've arranged for every document, every video, every name, to go live online. He stared into the camera. You can threaten me. You can follow me. But you will never silence me. That night, the video went viral. Millions watched. Millions wept, thousands took to the streets, and in the shadows, someone watched from a cold office, a figure in a gray suit, face lit by screen light. They picked up a phone. Activate fallback protocol. They said, Project Osprey has been exposed. We're moving to phase 2. Elijah couldn't sleep. The city outside was loud, but inside his hotel room it was silent. Too silent. His mother was finally resting, but he couldn't close his eyes. Not after what the man on the screen had said. Activate fallback protocol. Phase 2. What did that mean? And more importantly, who was he? The next morning, the hotel TV was flooded with breaking news. U.S. court orders, emergency hearing into Project Osprey, Senator Lancaster to face federal charges. Elijah Brooks' testimony triggers national investigation. It should have been a victory, but something felt wrong. Agent Harlow arrived an hour later, her face tight with worry. Lancaster is denying everything, she said. He claims the files are forged and now one of the key witnesses is missing. Who? Elijah asked. Harlow looked him straight in the eye. Susan Myers. The FBI had tried to contact her. Her apartment was empty. No one had seen her at the airport. Her phone was off. Gone. Elijah's hands shook. She said she was leaving the country, but she promised. I don't think she left willingly. Harlow interrupted. They both knew what that meant. She had been taken. Later that evening, Elijah received a private message on his encrypted laptop. No name. Just a subject line. You think you're winning. He opened it. Inside was a single image, a photo of Susan, bound, blindfolded, sitting in a dark room, and a countdown timer under it, :00:47, :3940-7 minutes. No message, no explanation, just a ticking clock. Elijah rushed to show Agent Harlow, but by the time she reached the room, the image had vanished. The message had deleted itself. Someone's playing games, she said. This isn't a game, Elijah snapped. They're telling me what's next. They're telling me she dies. They contacted cybercrime units, pulled all camera feeds, but nothing led to a clue. Until Elijah remembered something, the background in the image. There was a window, and outside that window, a bridge. He opened Google Maps, started scanning the city, street by street, and then he found it. A rusted, broken bridge, barely standing. On the edge of the city's industrial district, he pointed to it. She's there. I know it. Harlow hesitated. Elijah, this could be a trap. I don't care. She nodded. Then we go together. They reached a warehouse at the 8-minute mark on the timer. Dark, silent, no guards outside. They entered carefully. Weapons drawn. Inside. Nothing. Dust. Old crates. Abandoned machines. The timer was down to 1:12. Split up, Harlow said. Be fast. Elijah moved toward the back, past a broken office, past a staircase, then a sound. A muffled cry. He ran, and found her Susan tied to a chair, gagged, barely conscious. He ran to her, untied the ropes. But just as he pulled off the blindfold, she whispered, "It's a trap." And the wall behind them exploded. Elijah flew backward. Smoke. Fire, screaming. His ears rang. He couldn't move. Harlow's voice echoed somewhere behind him, calling for backup, but all he saw was Susan, unmoving. Blood on her forehead. He crawled to her, shaking. Her eyes fluttered open. Elijah, she said weakly, "Listen, Osprey is more than a project. It's a pipeline." A pipeline, he asked. 2 judges, 2 schools, 2 prisons. They don't care about truth. They care about control. He held her hand. You'll be okay? Help is coming. But she smiled sadly. I just needed to tell you that before they erased me. Then her hand went limp, and her eyes closed. Susan Myers was gone. Elijah didn't speak for hours, not even to Harlow. Not even when they returned to the safe house. He just stared at the USB in his hand. Last copy of her files, the last proof she died for. The next morning, Elijah made a decision. He walked into the Department of Justice with Agent Harlow and gave them everything. Publish it, he said. The agent in charge looked at him. If we do this, there's no turning back. Elijah didn't blink. There never was. The files went public. Names were named. Emails leaked. Audio recordings released. And the country exploded. Protests. News, specials, emergency. Sessions in Congress. People demanding answers. But with every headline, Elijah became more of a target, and that's when they came for him. It started with a car. Crash. A van slammed into their vehicle on a quiet road. Harlow shielded Elijah with her body, but the driver ran before anyone could catch him. Then the safe house was compromised. A sniper bullet shattered the window just inches from where Elijah had been standing, and finally, his encrypted laptop was stolen. It was clear now. Osprey had activated its hunters. They moved him again, this time, into a government bunker deep underground. But even there, he didn't feel safe, because something had changed. Not outside, inside. He was angry. He was tired of running. He was tired of losing the people who believed in him. And most of all, he was tired of being seen as a kid. Late one night, he stood in front of a camera crew inside the bunker. He recorded a new video. His voice was calm. His face was steady. My name is Elijah Brooks. I'm 17 years old, and I have one question for every person who helped build Project Osprey. He paused. Why are you so afraid of the truth? The next day, the video went live. And everything changed. The White House issued a statement. The DOJ opened arrests. 2 judges were indicted, and Lancaster, he was gone, vanished. But a voicemail appeared on Elijah's phone hours later. A voice he recognized. Lancaster, you win, kid. But you didn't destroy the system. You just scratched the surface. And someday, it's going to scratch back. Then silence. Elijah looked out the window of the bunker. For the first time, he felt something real. Not fear. Not fame. Fire. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was fighting, and in the shadows. Someone else was watching him, a woman in a leather coat, sitting in front of a large screen filled with names. She circled one name with red ink. Elijah Brooks. And then she whispered, "Time to bring in the replacement." Elijah had become a name everyone knew. News stations called him the teen who took on power. Students made protest signs with his face on them. Even government officials started whispering, "He's changing the game." But fame was never Elijah's goal. Truth was. And now, with Susan gone, and Lancaster missing, the truth felt more dangerous than ever. Elijah sat in front of a whiteboard trying to piece it together. He drew lines, names, events, but one phrase haunted him over and over again. Bring in the replacement. Who were they replacing? Susan. Judge him. And who was they? Agent Harlow entered the bunker's briefing room with a grim face. "Elijah," she said, "I need you to see something." She played a video file on the screen, a leaked, brainy, black and white from a hidden room. A group of people sat around a table. Men and women, older, powerful, and at the head of the table, a woman with cold eyes. "Alina Voss," Harlow said quietly, "Lancaster's real boss. She runs Osprey. She is Osprey." In the video, Alina spoke. "Brooks thinks he's clever, emotional, bold, but easily replaceable. We've already selected his mirror. A boy with a similar story, same background, but controlled, manufactured. We'll give the world a new Elijah when we control." Elijah stood frozen. "They're building a fake version of me." Harlow nodded. "They want to rewrite the narrative and erase yours," Elijah whispered. "They're not just replacing people, they're replacing truth." Hours later, Elijah asked Harlow for something no one expected. "I want to go back to the courtroom." She looked at him, confused. "The trial's over. Lancaster vanished. The system's cracked." "I know," he said, "but I need to say something, publicly. One last time." 2 days later, Elijah stood at the same courtroom where it all began. But this time, not as a defendant. He stood alone at the witness box. The gallery packed with press, cameras rolling. He looked into the lens and spoke directly to the world. "You tried to rewrite my story. You tried to scare me into silence. You took Susan. You erased others, but I'm still here. And now I'm calling out the person behind it all." He held up a photo. "Alina Voss. I'm not afraid of you." The next morning, the video went viral. Elijah vs. Voss trended worldwide. People protested outside government buildings. Whistleblowers stepped forward, but something more shocking happened. Someone leaked a photo, a blurry image of the replacement Elijah. He looked identical. Same eyes, same age, even the same scar on his eyebrow. But his name was Kyle Redden, and he had just signed a publishing deal to release a book titled My Fight Against the System, written by someone who never even went to court. Elijah was furious. He showed the photo to Harlow. They're already putting him in place. But Harlow had worse news. Voss is coming out of the shadows. She's giving an interview, live, tonight. That night, Elijah sat in the bunker, watching the screen. Alina Voss appeared in a sleek black suit, calm, charismatic. She smiled at the interviewer. "I've never met Elijah Brooks," she said, "but I support young voices. And while some believe in chaos, we believe in order." Then she introduced someone. A boy walked onto the stage. Elijah stood up in disbelief. It was Kyle, dressed exactly like him. The audience clapped. Some even cried. Kyle waved and said, "We just want truth, don't we?" Back in the bunker, Elijah punched the wall. "They're stealing my life." But then, an idea hit him. "What if I talk to him?" To Kyle. "Yes," Elijah said. "If he's real, if he's human, maybe he doesn't know what he's part of." Using deep contacts, Harlow arranged it. A private meeting. No cameras, no press. Just Elijah and Kyle face to face. The room was small. 2 chairs, 1 table. Kyle walked in with a soft smile. "Hi," he said. "You must be the real one." Elijah didn't laugh. "Do you know what they're doing to you?" "I do," Kyle said. "And I don't care." Elijah frowned. "You're okay being their puppet?" Kyle's smile dropped. His eyes turned cold. "I'm not their puppet," he said. "I'm their upgrade." The room went quiet. Elijah leaned forward. "They'll use you, then discard you." Kyle shrugged. "Maybe, but at least I'll be remembered." "Not for truth," Elijah said. "For betrayal." Kyle's voice turned darker. "They chose me because I don't break, because I don't cry in interviews, because I say what they want." He stood up. "You had your moment. Now it's mine." And with that, he walked out. Elijah sat frozen for a minute, and then, a smile crossed his face. He turned to Harlow, who had been listening in. "He just gave me everything I need." Harlow looked confused. "How?" "Because Elijah said he admitted everything, and he didn't know." Elijah pulled out a small audio recorder. "I recorded the whole thing." That night, Elijah uploaded the recording. Uncut, raw. Millions heard Kyle say, "I'm not their puppet. I'm their upgrade." It backfired on Osprey. Hard. People turned against Kyle, against Voss. More insiders defected, documents poured in, and finally, the arrest warrant was signed for Alina Voss. But the final twist came hours later, before she could be arrested. Voss disappeared. Gone. Vanished. Just like Lancaster, but she left behind a final message sent to Elijah's phone. A video. Voss sat in a dimly lit room. She spoke calmly. You want a battle, Elijah? But Osprey is not a person, it's a shape. And when one head falls, another rises. Enjoy your moment, it won't last. Elijah stood still, looking at the screen. Then he turned to Harlow. I'm not done, she asked. What do you want to do? He replied, finish the story. My story? The real one, and far away. Deep underground. Another chamber lit up. New names, new faces, and one red blinking line that read, activate. Protocol rebirth. Elijah couldn't sleep, even after the truth went viral, even after Kyle's confession shook the internet, even after the arrest warrant for Elena Voss was issued. She vanished, like a shadow slipping back into the dark. And now, every noise, every whisper felt like a threat. Agent Harlow sat with him in the bunker, silent. Elijah, she said gently, you won. But he didn't look convinced. She warned me, said Osprey isn't a person, it's a shape. She's right, Harlow admitted. We're only seeing the edge of it. But I need to see the center, Elijah said, because I don't want revenge. I want closure. 2 days later, a letter arrived. No stamp, no address, just his name in elegant handwriting. Elijah opened it carefully. Inside was a single line. You want the center? Then come alone. Midnight, Redridge facility. No backup. A map was drawn in black ink, old, faded, and at the bottom, a familiar symbol, the Osprey insignia. Harlow was furious when Elijah told her, it's a trap. I know, he said. Then why go? He paused, looked her in the eyes. Because if I don't, someone else like Kyle will take my place. That night, Elijah took a long breath and stepped out of the bunker alone. He followed the map through forests, abandoned roads, and forgotten fences. Finally, he reached a massive rusted gate with Redridge painted across it and faded. Red dot, it looked like an old military prison, and it was silent. Too silent, he walked through broken hallways, passing shattered glass, old files, and strange symbols on the walls. Suddenly, lights flickered on. A door opened by itself, and inside sat ElenaVoss.com, waiting. No guards. Elijah asked. I don't need them. He stepped in slowly. Why bring me here? She smiled faintly. To explain why we exist. You mean Osprey? She nodded. We're not criminals, Elijah. We're controllers. You manipulate. Courts replace people, bury truth. We maintain balance, she replied. When systems break, we fix them. When voices get too loud, we mute them. And when someone tells the truth, Elijah asked, we distort it, she said coldly, because truth is unstable. She stood up and walked to a panel on the wall. A screen lit up. Dozens of profiles, appeared names, photos, data. All of these, she said, are people we created. Leaders, influencers, even heroes. Then she tapped Elijah's face. But you were the one we didn't expect. Elijah's jaw clenched. You ruined lives. You saved none. She nodded slowly. Perhaps, but ask yourself, this: if we fall, what rises in our place? Suddenly, the screen behind her flickered. It wasn't Voss's system anymore. It was Harlow. Elijah. Her voice came through. We found you. Elijah's eyes widened. I tracked the envelope, she said. Get out now. You're not safe. Voss smirked. Well played. Elijah turned to leave, but the door slammed shut. Gas hissed from the vents. Voss's voice echoed. You want the truth? Then breathe it in. Elijah dropped to his knees. The room blurred. He woke up in a cold steel room, strapped to a chair. Monitors. Blinking scientists taking notes. One turned to him and said, Welcome to the heart of Osprey. For the next several hours, maybe days, Elijah was questioned, not tortured, just studied. What motivates you? What did Susan teach you? What is your breaking point? He answered some, ignored most, until one woman stepped in. Different from the others, she wore no lab coat, just a scarf. Old, familiar. Elijah, she said. Do you remember me? He stared, eyes wide. No. Yes, she said, gently. I'm Susan's sister. His heart dropped. You're with them. I was, she whispered, until they silenced her. I thought she died in the crash. She nodded slowly. She did, but not instantly. She was still alive when they found her. They let her bleed out. Elijah's fists clenched. They made it look like an accident, she said, and I stayed silent. Until now. She pulled a small flash drive from her coat. This has everything. The real project files, names, proof. Why now? Elijah asked. Because you didn't give up on her. She helped him out of the chair. They ran through the corridors. Sirens blared, lights flashed red. Where's Voss? He asked. Gone. Again, always one step ahead. They reached the exit door, but it was guarded. Osprey enforcers stood with weapons. The woman stepped forward. I'm the defect, she said. Take me. Let him go. They hesitated. Elijah looked at her. No, I won't let you. But she shoved him through the emergency hatch and slammed it shut behind him. Alarms roared, and she was gone. Elijah ran through trees, back roads, until he reached an old radio tower. He activated the transmitter. Harlow, it's me. I've got the data, but she's gone. Static, then her voice. I've got you. Sending a chopper. Hours later, Elijah sat back, In the bunker, flash drive in hand, shaking, he plugged it in. Harlow, her team, analysts, they all gathered. One file opened. Project Echo, the Artificial Hero Initiative. Kyle, others, all fake identities. Controlled narratives. Send it to every journalist, Harlow said. He nodded and clicked upload. The next morning, news outlets exploded. The world saw everything. The truth finally, but one final twist, remained at the bottom of the last folder, was a letter to Elijah, from Susan, written weeks before she died. If you're reading this, I didn't make it, but know this. I never fought for systems. I fought for you, because truth matters more than comfort, more than safety, more than life. Keep going, and when it hurts, speak louder. Elijah cried for the first time in months, not from fear, but from love. Susan was gone, but her fight lived on, and far away. In a glass tower overlooking the sea, Alina Voss stood alone, watching the world burn with truth. She turned to her assistant. Let it all burn, she said, then we rebuild. The assistant asked, what about the boy? Voss smirked. He just passed his final test. The world had changed overnight. Every major network covered the leak. Osprey exposed. Teenager brings global power to its knees, what they hid from you for years. But Elijah sat in silence. He wasn't celebrating, he was waiting, because Alina Voss hadn't disappeared. She had simply gone quiet, and silence from someone like her was the loudest threat. Agent Harlow entered the room with a USB in her hand. Elijah, she said. This just came in from an anonymous source. He took it, opened it, a video played, grainy, black and white. It showed a courtroom. A man in a suit stood at the center. But not just any man, that it was Judge Raymond Halter, the one who had first dismissed Elijah's case, the man who laughed at him in front of a national audience. But in the video, Halter was different. He was sweating, his voice shaking. And then he whispered something that made Elijah sit up straight. I was forced. They told me if I didn't shut the boy down, they'd make my daughter disappear. Osprey isn't justice. It's survival. Elijah paused the video, his heart pounding. Harlow, how many more of them are out there? Harlow's eyes were heavy. We don't know. But we think Osprey's network includes over 300 compromised judges, 40 senators, and at least 2 intelligence heads. Elijah stood up. Then leaking the truth wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The next morning, Elijah was called to testify before a special international tribunal, not just a court of global inquiry into Osprey's crimes. Representatives from 20 countries were present, but Elijah wasn't nervous. He had lost too much to be afraid now. He stepped into the massive marble hall. All cameras turned to him. This time, he had no lawyer, no Susan, no backup, just truth. He sat down, looked into the microphone, and began. My name is Elijah Rowe. I'm 17, and I know the cost of silence. He didn't read from a script. He spoke from memory. From pain. He talked about Susan. About the night she disappeared. About Kyle and the fake identities. About Redridge. About the heart of Osprey. One by one, tribunal members questioned him. A woman from Germany asked, why didn't you walk away when the threats came? Elijah paused, then answered, because if they were afraid of my voice, it meant it had power. The room went quiet then. A man from Brazil asked, what do you want now? Elijah looked up. Not angry, just clear. I don't want revenge. I want safeguards. I want people in power to be accountable. I want a world where a kid doesn't need to lose everything just to be believed. The tribunal ended with a standing ovation, but as Elijah stepped outside, something strange happened. A car pulled up across the street. The window rolled down. A woman in sunglasses stared at him. It wasn't Voss, but it felt like her shadow. She handed him a phone. No words, just a silent order. He answered. A deep voice spoke on the other end. The tribunal was never the threat. Elijah, you just angered people far more powerful. Who are you? Elijah asked. The ones who built Osprey, the voice said. Before Voss? Before Susan? Before you? Why contact me now? Because Voss has gone rogue. She's not protecting balance anymore. She wants to burn it all. And you want me to? Stop her. No, the voice said. We want you to choose. Choose what? Whether you'll be a destroyer or a builder. The call ended. The woman drove off, and Elijah was left standing in the street, confused, worried, and more alone than ever. That night, Harlow brought him news. Alina Voss just hijacked a satellite network. She's going live in 10 minutes. Global broadcast. Elijah and the others rushed to the command room. The screen flashed. Voss appeared standing on a rooftop, wind blowing through her hair. She looked calm. You exposed the surface, Elijah, she said. But the roots remain. You wanted justice, but all you've created is chaos. She began naming names, dropping files, leaking everything. Not just Osprey secrets, but the ones hidden by governments, all of them. She's not burning just Osprey, Harlow whispered. She's torching the entire system. Suddenly, the screens went dark. An emergency override activated. The internet across 5 countries shut down. Elijah, Harlow said urgently. We've traced her location. She's on the Arkin building, New York. Elijah knew what this meant. The final confrontation, not in secret halls, not in shadows, but in the heart of the world. He turned to Harlow. I want to go. You're not trained, but I'm the only one she speak to. The next evening, Elijah arrived by chopper on the roof of the Archon building. There she was, standing on the edge, looking down at the lights of the city. I knew you'd come, she said without turning. You gave me no choice, Elijah replied. I gave you truth, she said. You just didn't like what it looked like. She handed him a file. This is the last piece. Project Origin. Elijah opened it and froze. It was about him, his adoption, his school, his family, all planted. You made me, he whispered. We guided you, she said, because the world needed someone to rise. But now you want to tear it all down. Elijah stared at her and finally spoke. No, I want to build something better. Voss stepped closer to the edge. You still don't understand. If you want to fix the system, Elijah, you'll have to become part of it. She held out a black keycard. Join me, or stop me. Elijah looked at the card, then at the streets below. He reached out and dropped it over the edge. It disappeared into the dark. Voss's face didn't change, but her eyes softened. For the first time, she looked proud. I thought you'd choose power, she said. Elijah shook his head. I choose truth. Suddenly, a helicopter spotlight lit the roof. Agents surrounded them. Voss raised her hand, smiling, then finished it. As they took her away, Elijah stood at the edge she had once claimed, looking at the city, a city full of lies, but also hope. Elijah thought the fight was over, that Elena Voss's arrest meant the system would begin to heal, that truth had finally won. But truth is not that simple, because the day after her arrest, the world changed again. Day 1. Banks froze transactions. In 3 countries, a judge in London was found unconscious and his office no signs of forced entry. 2 major senators resigned, citing security threats. And someone hacked the emergency alert systems in 5 cities, all with one message. She's gone. We're still here. Agent Harlow met Elijah in a quiet room at a secured facility. She looked tired, older than her age. Elijah, she said softly, they're retaliating. Not from fear, but from habit. What do you mean? Osprey was never one group. It was 1,000 people with the same belief. Control is safer than chaos. That night, Elijah sat alone in his room. He watched an old video of Susan, the lawyer who once believed in him. Her laugh. Her way of calling him kid when she wanted him to think bigger. He whispered, I wish you could see what's happening now. And then his phone buzzed. An unknown number. No name. He almost ignored it. But something told him to pick up. Elijah, the voice said. It was familiar, calm, but cold. Voss. No, the voice replied. She's out of the picture. For now. But you've just been invited. Invited where? Elijah asked. To the chamber. The next morning, Harlow and Elijah stood at a remote airstrip. You're sure you want to go? She asked. He nodded. They want to meet me. Fine, let's meet. They flew for hours, no windows, no communication. When they landed, it was night, and they were in the middle of snow-covered mountains. A black SUV waited. And in it sat Martin. Vale Elijah, he greeted. You've caused more chaos than any adult I've ever met. You sound annoyed. No, Martin smiled. I'm impressed. They drove in silence to a facility buried inside the mountain. Steel, cold, endless corridors. At the heart of it was the chamber. A round table, 12 chairs, men and women in suits, no names, just eyes. One of them, a woman with silver hair, spoke first. You exposed Osprey, but what you don't understand is someone always fills the vacuum. Another man added, people don't want freedom. They want order, and we give it to them. Elijah stared at all of them. So, what is this? He asked. A job offer. Not exactly, Vale said. It's a decision. If you walk away now, the machine rebuilds. Stronger, faster, smarter. And if I stay, you shape it. Elijah stood there for a long time. Then he walked to the center of the room. I'm 17, he said, and I've lost more than most adults ever will. You want me to lead? You already do, the silver-haired woman said. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, Susan's last handwritten note to him. He read it aloud. Power that hides in shadows is no power at all. Burn the lies, light the path. He looked up. I won't rebuild what you broke. He turned around, started to walk out, but one young Sharpie followed. Elijah, he called. The boy stopped. If you walk away, you'll be hunted. I already was. You'll be betrayed. I already was. You'll be alone. I was, but not anymore. And with that, Elijah left the chamber. Back into the cold, back into the unknown. The next morning, the world woke up to a message brought everywhere. From Elijah. He stood in front of a plain wall. No filters, no suits, no agenda, just him. I was given a seat at the table. I walked away. Because I don't want a table built on secrets. To every kid out there who was told to stay quiet, speak louder. To every adult who lost their way, come back. And to the ones hiding in shadows, I'm not afraid anymore. The video ended, but the movement did not. In cities across the world, students walked out of classrooms. Judges resigned. Officers turned in their badges. A global whistleblower network launched overnight, and its founder, a 17-year-old boy, who once stood alone in a courtroom, but the storm was not over yet. That night, Harlow rushed into Elijah's room. "We just intercepted a signal," she said breathlessly. "It's from someone we thought was dead." She showed him the screen. Blurry face came into view. "Hello, Elijah," the voice crackled. "Remember me?" Elijah's blood froze. "Susan?" The screen flickered. It was late at night. Elijah stared at the frozen frame. Her voice echoed in his ears again. "Hello, Elijah. Remember me? Susan. The lawyer who had walked out on him? The woman he trusted. The woman he thought had died, but now she was back. Or was she?" Agent Harlow entered quickly. She was already on the phone. "Trace that feed. Now? I don't care where it came from, find her." Elijah looked stunned. He whispered, "It can't be her. She's gone." But the voice came again through the static. "They lied to you. Elijah, I didn't walk out on you. I was taken." The image started to fade. "I don't have much time. They know I'm alive. And now? They know you know too." The signal cut off. Silence. Only Elijah's heartbeat echoed in the room. In the next hour, chaos unfolded. The team found a trace. It came from somewhere in Romania, a remote region near the Carpathian Mountains. No known internet source. Just a burst transmission. Whoever sent it was hiding deep underground. Elijah didn't hesitate. "I'm going," Harlow protested. "It could be a trap, maybe, but if it's really her, I have to try." She studied his face. It wasn't a boy's face anymore. It was someone who had seen too much. Hands still chose hope. Within 24 hours, they landed near the last known signal. Snow everywhere. Mountains like silent guards. A local guide led them to a forgotten Soviet bunker abandoned for decades, but the steel door was freshly used. Elijah's heart pounded. He stepped inside first. They moved quietly, flashlights in hand. Every hallway looked the same, cold, rusted, endless. Then voices. He stopped, held his breath. One voice was clear. It was Susan. They turned the corner, and there she was, sitting, tied, guarded by two armed men. When she saw Elijah, her eyes welled with tears. Elijah, without thinking, he rushed forward. One guard raised his gun, but Harlow fired first. Bang bang. Both guards went down. Elijah cut her ropes. She was weak, pale, but alive. "I thought you left me," he said, holding back tears. "I tried to warn you," she whispered. "They faked everything. My resignation, my death. They wanted to break you. But why? Because you weren't supposed to win." They helped her out of the bunker. But just as they reached the surface, Harlow stopped. Her earpiece buzzed. "Say that again?" she asked sharply. Then she turned to Elijah, stunned. "There's a warrant. For your arrest." "What?" "They're flipping the narrative. You're being framed for everything." Elijah shook his head. "No, that's impossible. They say you leaked classified files, endangered global security, and murdered a federal officer." "Susan," he whispered. She nodded grimly. "They're using me, claiming you killed me." Suddenly spotlights. Helicopters. The sky above exploded with light. Voices shouted from loudspeakers. "Elijah Voss, you are under arrest. Surrender immediately." Harlow turned. "You need to run. I won't leave you. I'm an agent. I signed up for this. But you're the symbol now." He hesitated. Susan gripped his hand. "Go. You're the reason I survived. Don't stop now." Elijah ran into the forest. Snow soaked his clothes. Branches tore at his arms. But he didn't stop. Behind him, he heard gunfire, shouts, then silence. 2 days passed. Elijah hid in an abandoned cabin. No phone, no signal. Just memories. He replayed Susan's words, and remembered what she said in court long ago. Truth doesn't defend itself. It needs people brave enough to carry it. He knew what had to be done. That night, he climbed a mountain peak. Nearby. He set up a transmitter, one of the few they recovered from the bunker. He uploaded everything. All the files, all the videos, all the proof, and one last message. He stood before the camera. "They took her. Then they blamed me. Now they'll try to bury us both. But I have the truth, and I'm giving it to the world. To every young person watching this, never trust silence. It always protects power. They can arrest me, but they can't arrest what we've started." He pressed upload. The signal went live. Across the world, screens lit up, files decrypted, names revealed, deals exposed. The world watched. The system shook. But Elijah didn't stay. As the file uploaded, footsteps approached the cabin. A red laser flickered on his chest. Too late to run? He raised his hands. They cuffed him hard. No questions, just silence. One officer leaned in. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Elijah didn't flinch. He whispered, "Or maybe, I made the world's first honest one." They shoved him into a transport van. Steel doors shut. Susan's voice still echoed in his head, and as the van drove off, sirens fading, one thing became clear. This story wasn't ending. It was just about to explode. The courtroom was full. Every seat taken, media, judges, politicians, activists, all watching. Because today was not just a trial, it was a war, and in the middle of it stood Elijah Voss, only 17, chained, but not silent. His arrest had sent shockwaves. Millions watched his leaked video. Government officials panicked. Senators called for investigations. Protests began outside federal buildings. But inside the court it was quiet too. Quiet because the prosecution had something else, something no one expected. They rolled in a tall TV screen. Security footage played. Grainy video of a figure entering. A dark room, gunshots, then a body. They paused the screen. "That's her," the prosecutor said, pointing his lawyer, Susan Blake. Gasps echoed through the court. "And that," he said, pointing at the shadowy figure, "is the defendant, Elijah Voss." The judge looked grim. "Mr. Voss," he said, "do you understand the weight of these charges?" Elijah nodded. Double quotes. "Yes, Your Honor. And do you still wish to represent yourself?" Elijah stood straight. "I do," people whispered. A teenager, defending himself against federal prosecutors. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." Elijah walked slowly to the center. He looked directly into the camera. "Because he knew the world was watching. Before I speak," he began, "I want to ask one question." He turned to the prosecutor. "Where's the full video? The one that came before the gunshots?" The prosecutor's smile faded. We've already presented the relevant portion." Elijah nodded, then clicked a remote. "A different video," began. Security footage from the other angle, recovered from a hidden drive Susan had smuggled out before she disappeared. The screen showed Susan entering the room. Moments later, two men followed. They weren't part of her legal team. They threatened her, tried to silence her. Then gunfire. Elijah wasn't there at all. The court gasped again. Elijah's voice cracked slightly. "She was trying to protect me, and they silenced her, but they didn't know she survived." At that moment, the doors at the back opened. People turned. A woman stepped in, bandages on her arms, a slight limp. Susan Blake. Alive. Camera flashes exploded. The prosecutor froze. Susan raised her hand. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady, "I request to testify." The judge looked stunned, but nodded. She walked slowly to the stand. What she said would change everything. She told the truth. About the case, the groups, the threats, how the system was never meant to protect someone like Elijah, but how he broke through. Anyway, she exposed names, deals, fake evidence, and more. When she finished, no one spoke. Even the judge leaned back, visibly shaken. He looked at Elijah. "Do you have anything more to add?" Elijah stepped forward. "I was homeless. Father gone. Mother addicted. No one cared. Until a woman sat across from me in a courtroom and said, 'I believe you.'" He turned to Susan. "Even when the world didn't, she did." The judge, Studi, removed his glasses, and then quietly said the words, "Mr. Voss, this court owes you an apology. You are hereby cleared of all charges, and this court recommends a full federal inquiry into everything that has been revealed here." Applause erupted. But Elijah didn't smile. He looked down, tired, worn. The battle was won, but the war had cost him too much. Later, outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed him. "What's next for you, Elijah?" they asked. He looked around. Flashing lights, loud voices, noise. He spotted a boy maybe 10 watching him from behind the crowd. Dirty shoes, thin arms, wide eyes. A face Elijah recognized all too well. He walked up to the boy, kneeled. "You okay?" The boy nodded. "I watched your video," he whispered. I didn't know people like me could fight back." Elijah smiled, then handed him something. A folded note. The boy opened it. Inside a quote, "They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds." Months passed. Elijah disappeared from the public eye. Some said he moved abroad. Some said he was writing a book. Others believed he was building something quietly. But the truth, he was creating change. He started an institute for youth wrongly accused, for kids who had no voice, for those the system forgot. He named it the Blake Foundation, and on its opening day, Susan stood beside him. No reporters, just a group of kids. All survivors, all fighters. Elijah looked at them and said, "No, one saved me, but that's okay because now, we save each other." Years later, a courtroom played the same old video. A young girl accused alone, but a new lawyer entered. Sharpsuit.com voice. "Fierce heart. My name's Elijah Voss," he said, "and I'll be representing her." The teen they tried to bury became the man no one could ignore. The boy they silenced became the voice the world finally heard.